Okay, camera's
I
on.
talked on 70 RPM, and it would help if I turned it on.
Hi, Steve. Good morning to all.
Good morning. It also help if I put the little thing in.
How are you?
Yeah.
Good.
All morning.
Are you doing the show this evening?
I am. So you make it out of an evening meeting if you want to, because it's gonna sound pretty similar, just a different voice.
I share that one also.
Oh, well, you know what, I've asked my colleague Derek to do it, to give him a little more public presentation exposure, so
Good.
I'm
Yeah.
just there for moral support.
Well, and I gotta get it out of my system. I'm annoyed because yesterday I was supposed to get lower back injections, and on Tuesday afternoon, the office called and said the doctor's sick. No, he farms the injections out. So there's only a few guys that locally that do them. So now I'm rescheduled for September 6th. Not happy. But, sorry about that.
That's what happens when you get old.
Well, couldn't have anything to do with that.
How about it, Dave?
You betcha. It's the alternative.
What time is it?
You got 2 minutes.
2 minutes, yeah.
Do you want to informally do introductions, because I don't know that everybody knows everybody?
All right, well then, that's a good idea. So before we call the meeting to order, we'll go take a lap around the table. So if you, we'll start, Bill.
Yes, I'm Bill Jennings, Borough Council. Oh, Keith Durham, Borough Council. I didn't know you were this direction.
Oh, I'm looking that way.
I'm Mark Ware, the business administrator for the Wyomissing Area School District.
Mark.
Pam Menet, you'll hear from me soon.
Dean Murray, Borough Manager, Western Borough.
Michelle Bear, Borough Manager, Wyomissing Borough.
Melissa Miller, Borough Secretary.
Mike Hart, Borough Manager for the Second Spring Borough.
Dave Reese, your council member.
Fred Levery, Mayor of Wyomissing, and Chair of this committee.
Dave Basham, Committee Member.
Steve Brunner, Borough Council.
We have a combination of council people, elected people, and some citizens. Dave is a citizen these days, although he has served in almost every capacity that known to mankind in the borough. So, we will now call the meeting to order for the Economic Development Committee on the 25th. I guess it's still necessary to do a roll call.
All right, Fred Levery,
Here,
Dave Basher,
Here.
Steve Brunner,
Here.
Bill Jenks,
Here.
and Keith Durham.
Here.
thank you. We're gonna have a public comment. And are there any public comments today? All right, then, as far as our agenda is concerned, we're gonna have this presentation from the county in regards to the new economic development strategy. So there's no, I think that we all know Pam. She's been with the chamber and now the county for a long time.
Long time, yeah.
And is in charge of coordinating this. One thing I'd like you to address before you get into your presentation is, why is this plan different from the countless other plans that are on the shelf somewhere or another in this county?
Okay, well, the one thing that I'll tell you, and this is a little foreshadowing to closer to the end, is that we've already begun implementing this plan. And even before the commissioners formally adopted at the beginning of August, we hit the ground running July 1st when we had a final draft of it and started to align our expenditures with the year one implementation strategies in the plan. So we came out of the gate pretty strong with implementation dollars and programs and activities. So there's one very significant one. We will come back on an annual basis in somewhat the practice of the Berks nature, where every year they come out and they used to do kind of like a thumbs up, thumb sideways, thumbs down type of status. I think ours will be a little bit more definitive. But what we've done is we've outlined baseline metrics that we would use. So starting at the beginning of the plan, we'll come back in 1 year and say, how did we do? And that's something that we haven't been very good at, being accountable on our metrics. And if you don't have those baseline metrics, you never know if you're successful. So my relationship with the commissioners for many years has been, I'm going to tell you about the good, the bad, and the ugly. And when we get to the bad and the ugly, we can decide that it's either not important, that we need to change a strategy, or that we need to do something a little bit different. And that's worked very well, and I think that's going to maintain the integrity of this process, because as we go through this, it cannot be static. It must be dynamic. And I think that's where there'll be a difference in terms of we've already started implementing, and we believe that there's an incredible sense of accountability to the residents of Berks County, or else why do it?
So in summary, the difference between this plan and the others is that Pamela left this.
This is my charge, and I take this very seriously. I am a Berks County native. I hail from Plowville. I live in the house I grew up in, and there's a passion that I have for Berks County because I'm very fortunate in that my skill set could allow me to work in a number of different locations, and I choose to be here in Berks County. So, yeah, take it very seriously.
Great. And having known her a long while, I can attest that she will live up to her word.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, it's all yours.
So here's where we started out. This name came from Commissioner Barnhart. We were looking for something and did a little bit of brainstorming and said, well, why isn't this really about how we're imagining our future? And it stuck, and we went with Imagine Berks. This is the vision statement that we agreed on. It doesn't feel to me as if it's a canned statement because we gave it so much thought. And when we did some surveying on the website that we had developed, we did that infamous cloud map, and you'll actually see that in the plan, and I'm going to make sure everyone gets a copy of this, about the things that people thought are most important and that mean the most to them in the county. And this really is capturing a lot of that. So it's a very diverse vision statement, but I think one that sets the stage for us very well. This is the project team. The commissioners were very clear, though they had been requested by the business community to say, hey, by the way, you need a plan, and we'd like to be involved in that. And we said, well, yeah, you absolutely should be involved in it, but the commissioners were very clear that this should be county-led, especially because we wanted to implement, and that county resources would be the primary resources that would be spent on some of this activity. So myself, my colleague Derek, David Hunter, and Ashley Showers from the Planning Commission, Ken Pick from the County Redevelopment Authority, and Jeremy Zaborowski from the Industrial Development Authority acted as the project team guiding the process with our consultant, Fourth Economy.
Sorry.
No worries, no worries. So what you're going to see here is, again, I've already talked about how important it was to establish that baseline and the vision, and also outlining goals and strategies. You're going to see that we ended up on 6 focus areas, and we determined already goals and action steps under each of those. And I think that's the piece that will be, again, differentiating us from other plans. Very early on, that baseline analysis, and the group that we work with, the Economic Development Research Arm in Lancaster County, we've contracted with for many years. They had an endowment of over $3 million to set up a research center, so we're like, cool, we're going to take full advantage of this. And their guiding us on the metrics for this was very important in determining how we came up with our focus areas. That community-wide listening tour was August, the end of August last year. Because we were in the middle of the, oh gosh, at that time Delta variant, we were in person, but we met with Wyomissing Borough in the parking lot over at the Knitting Mill. And we really wanted to hit a number of boroughs and give our consultant a real flavor for what they could experience about the diversity of kind of the economic landscape of Berks County. So we did that. We were down in Boyertown, we were over the 18th Wonder, we were here, we're at a number of different places to really make sure that they didn't just sit in their office to write our plan, but that they came here to physically visit us. Then we did some stakeholder interviews, engaging that business community, engaging a number of municipal officials, did our online survey, and then also held these build sessions which were tough because, man, we wanted these build sessions to be in person. We think that's the, the energy that comes from being able to share information and dialogue, and they had to be virtual. So we're a little disappointed by that, but we made the best of it. So here's some things that I think you're going to find very interesting. I don't think the first one's a surprise that we have a mismatch between what our employers are looking for and the skill sets that our current workforce has, our participating labor force. We knew that. We've got to do a little bit better job about starting to align that. Land availability is a challenge. Some folks have looked at this as a bit of a throwdown. It's not a throwdown, it's a statement of fact. We've got 22% commercial residential activity. There are opportunities for development. I will continue to say that the easy ones are done, and that this is not a, this isn't the throwdown between ag preservation and conservation and open space preservation and development. This is the what needs to guide us to make smart decisions about and proactive decisions about our land policy as we move forward. Housing stock doesn't meet demand. Wow, this was a, it wasn't an aha moment until they shared with us the number of housing units that we were actually short to meet the growth demands of Berks County. And so it was identified that there are 45,000 units short in Berks County. And then they say, because people are always like, oh, how can that be? Well, Lancaster is 55,000 units shy of their growth rate. And what has really happened is that compression where folks who can afford higher value housing, it is not available to them. They buy something in the mid-value range. And then, of course, all of those folks who are at that mid-value range get kind of pushed out because there's not an opportunity for them in the mid-value. So this is not just about affordable housing. This is about housing at all levels of value in Berks County. And we were very clear that our community messaging had to start to reflect the diversity that exists within Berks County on a number of cultural levels and also with our diverse age demographic as well. So we focused in on these areas, business industry growth, small business, infrastructure, land use, town economic mobility, housing, and placemaking. I'll be talking more about those. There's going to be something that you see throughout the plan, and we have addressed it here in our overall slide presentation, which is we want to be sure that as we begin to address this mismatch of our labor force and our employers, that we're clearly looking at what we've called opportunity jobs. And opportunity jobs are, this whole concept of living wage to a certain extent has to fly out the window. We need to be looking at very clear economic pathways and job creation that allows people to be economically mobile. And that's really why we included the economic mobility tagline along with talent. So those are something that we absolutely will be taking a look at again on the proactive side. We know we need to look at housing. And one of the things that we identified is we definitely need to look at the ability for us to create housing within our existing population centers across the county. So that is everything from Morgantown to Bethel to Wyomissing to Fleetwood to Kutztown. We'd love for a lot of that housing growth to take place closer to those population centers. We are going back now as one of our action steps and taking a look at all of the plans that have been approved in the past 5 years that are still valid, approved land development plans, and saying, okay, why did these stall? What do we need to do to get something moved forward? Did it really address the type of housing product that we believe we're identifying that we need? So you're going to see how we're aligning with a lot of these goals with our action steps. Encouraging industrial and commercial redevelopment. Again, this is something where we think focusing redevelopment activity in our boroughs is really mission critical for us. We had already been engaged in smart growth committees, and we're really trying to figure out how we get our legs under us with this. And so what we did is say, we don't need to create another committee. We have a smart growth committee, and so now we took the smart growth committee and incorporated it into Imagine Berks, because we do think that we need to pay attention. This happens to be an Alvernia picture, just because I think it was a picture that was available to us, but it could be any borough within Berks County. So here's the actionable side. So we have identified, so for example, invest in site development where market and environmental conditions call for a public role. We don't have to participate in everything, but those easy ones that don't exist anymore many times require some level of public support in order to get them to the point where it makes market sense for them to actually be developed. The G process is the joint economic approval process. That's the coordination of all approval entities when a development comes along. In that instance, I will tell you, this is not the county swooping in. The threshold requirement for that is that the borough municipality must approve the project to go through the process. And if they do not, we will not convene a meeting where we're facilitating the approval entities. We're doing some mapping. We've got a great GIS mapping system. It's kind of an unsung hero in our planning department. And now it's time that we take all of the mapping that we've been doing and start to do overlays so that we do a better job of identifying those areas that are most appropriate for growth. Supporting the authorities to rehab and reuse. One of the things that we're gonna do, you'll see site reuse investment program. There are two things actually that are coming out of that. The commissioners are committing to identifying resources to do not only an infrastructure fund, but also site reuse fund. And that site reuse fund would very clearly be oriented to our already built out areas of the county that need a little bit more support. You see the opportunity jobs. And we've also identified agribusiness. You know, someone in one of my presentations said, you know, agriculture is business. I don't disagree with that. But the face of our ag business community is changing rapidly. And between farm succession and also the new processes that have come online with agriculture are much more leaning towards mechanized processes. And even some of our local zoning ordinances do not account for some of that value-added production that they're putting on even their preserved farms at this point. We have to start addressing that. Small business. Those of you, by the way, who do not know Deli Oluwa, he is Pagoda Apparel, located right downtown. Deli has been a wonderful, I think, small business success story for particularly Ready. So those of you, you know, I'm from Berks County, so I was talking about, you know, places, well, what they used to be called. So Deli's business was originally set up next to the old John Mazzo's. So those of you may know, and 6 and Cherry, John Mazzo's was there. So Deli was there. He's now in the BARDA intermodal facility because he needed more room and actually just got a small business loan to expand his business even more. But we've got to allow folks to be able to do more of that. Deli continued his full-time job until he could make this business operationally successful for him, where it is now his full-time occupation. And we've got to do more of that. We've got to recognize that all small business and entrepreneurship are not high-tech venture companies, but some of them are in our main streets, and we need to be supportive of that. So one of the things we've identified is local procurement. We are well on our way. There's going to be a program, and I think it's the beginning of October, that we've set up where small businesses can come in, meet with larger businesses, and figure out how they even get into the purchasing queue for some of these, whether it's a school district, whether it's an institution. County government is actually the hardest to break into, believe it or not, just because we fall under the third class county code. But we recognize that we need to do more business to business and more business as an institution. One of the areas that we've started here is our Office of Aging gets dollars to do local purchase of food products. And so we're like, wow, did our ag department even know that this takes place? So they've gone out and identified small ag producers, whether it is you know, vegetable, fruits, whatever, seasonal products, to be able to align that to get to our senior centers, which are state contracts, to allow them to have locally purchased fruits and vegetables.
What's the 1, 2, 3 across the top of the graph?
I'm so sorry. Year 1, 2, and 3. Years 1, 2, and 3. We identified the year in which the activity would begin, not necessarily that it's completed, but that it would begin. I'm sorry. Thank you, Brad.
When was the first year?
The first year started July 1st.
Oh.
July 1st of this year. So we're in it. Yeah, we are in it. There is, through the Berks Alliance and the Greater Reading Chamber Alliance, they're doing something called entrepreneurial ecosystem mapping. And we're very committed to that and waiting to obtain the results from that, and then we'll incorporate those planning results into this plan as well. One of the other things we did, we know that there's an inability for many businesses to scale up because they cannot access resources. So the commissioners just provided $100,000 to what's called the FLIC program. It's the Financial Lending Innovative Collaborative, I don't know. I think they like FLIC and then came up with the words after that, because it's a tongue twister. But we didn't want to administer, county government sure didn't want to administer a micro-lending program. One already existed that was set up with private dollars during the pandemic. And a bunch of local business leaders got together, put together a pool of money, and started putting dollars out to businesses that were struggling. And we're like, well, what better way to use public dollars to leverage private funds? So we provided these funds to the Opaque Center at Alvernia, and they'll begin doing, it will allow them to do a greater volume of small business lending. At the first check presentation that they made, I think Deli, the business that you saw there, got $5,000 for the purchase of a new piece of machinery, and then there were $1,000 and $3,000 outlay. Believe it or not, those are the dollars that are hard for those folks to get. So we're very happy to be able to, again, hit the ground running. And you'll probably see a nice cardboard check presentation in the next few weeks for that. Infrastructure and land use is one that will absolutely begin to dictate our county land use policies and model ordinances that we come up with that can be utilized at the local level for those municipalities that determine that they want to be more proactive in development, whether that's commercial, residential, industrial, whatever that may be. So again, the permitting process that used to be done at the state level is now able to be done at the local level. That is huge for us. That could add months and months and months to land development approvals through DEP, and we're now able to have those plans processed and approved at the local level by the Conservation District. That was really a good one for us. Identifying those growth corridors and also taking a look at public transit. And one of the things that came up, which relates to some of our placemaking, so some of these kind of cross focus areas, is that some of our trail connectivity, if we can figure out how to fill in some of those gaps in trail connectivity, we could allow that as a mode of transportation for people to get to a place of employment. So if we've got residential areas that are close to employment centers, what better way to try and get them there? And not everything is going to be on a bus, and not everything is going to be in a car, but what if we allowed both pedestrian and bicycle transportation? So things we are looking at. This also involves Schuylkill River passenger rail. Probably, and I don't want to assume, Fred, that you keep folks up to date on that, but I'm hoping that
Yes.
that's a topic of conversation here, maybe once or twice. The level of excitement and engagement in that right now is unprecedented. And even talking about the transit-oriented development and overlays in areas that would be impacted by passenger rail, I think are allowing people to come together around a topic that people thought for many years was never within our grasp. And then the Reading Regional Airport, we are in a strategic plan right now for the airport. I actually sit on the airport authority right now. And one of the things that we identified is, you may or may not know, there's a lot of business traffic that goes in and out of the airport. And if you're not familiar with it, that may be a bit of an aha moment. Quest Diagnostics flying in and out of there is a huge, huge operation. We're looking at projects now to allow them to expand. We're looking at development of non-aviation land, and then we're also looking at how do we bring in more hangars, because there is huge pent-up demand right now for corporate hangar space. More corporate folks that we can get into the community, we think that's just better for us. So here's just kind of a real-time example. I'm working with a company to recruit them for their East Coast location from the Midwest. They're located in Wisconsin. So the president of the company flew into Reading a year ago. I picked him up at the airport at one of our FBOs, showed him around the community, and Fred, Michelle, you've heard me say this to me, so I usually wrap my arm around folks' legs and don't let go until they step on my head, but this company set up their sales force here. They recognized that they had to be in this market. Inventory is a little bit tough, but they're using the fact that they can fly in and out of the Reading airport to say, this is a great reason for us to be here in Berks County. So they are in the final stages of negotiating a lease to be here in Berks County, and that announcement should come out pretty soon. But you know, that's their base of mode of transportation, fly back and forth between their corporate headquarters. So it means a lot to us. I don't know about passenger service. Passenger service could come here, but I'm not sure that folks in Berks County are quite prepared for what that subsidy looks like. And the contract that they sign with you is month to month. So, you know, Spirit Airlines at Arnold Palmer Airport in Latrobe is on a month-to-month lease with that airport. The county puts in about $1.8 million per year to fund the operations of Spirit Airlines flying in and out of there. And that's a low number for some of the airports that have to fund passenger service. So just want to, you know, that's usually a question folks ask, like, why aren't we looking at that more? It's a very inexpensive proposition. So people, we still think that folks identify Berks County as a place where they can access talent. And we're actually looking to align a little bit more in with our colleges and technical schools. So we're not really, there are so many wonderful programs out there, and believe it or not, I go back to, not everyone talks together. And so what we're really trying to do is determine, how do we make it easy for people who are underemployed, because it's not always the unemployed that our employers are looking for. They're looking for the folks who are already in our labor force, but happen to be working at something where their skill set might be a greater skill set, and we're able to bring them in. Because these folks are already showing up for work. And that has been a huge piece. The soft skills we've recognized, the adult literacy training that we have to do, and that is not just in English as a second language. Numeracy literacy has become huge to our employers. And I'm hoping just like 2 + 2, but sometimes, as you know, on the shop floor, you've got to do a little bit more of a math calculation, and we're finding that our students coming out of school aren't necessarily prepared to do some of those math calculations. So we need to really pay attention to that. And that is no slight, by the way, as you know, to the school system. I've had teenagers, so I know they do what they want to do sometimes, and it's not always necessarily doing their homework. So, but we think there's a lot of ways we can bring all of that upskilling together. And then helping businesses in recruiting that talent. We know that we also have to recruit talent into Berks County, not just upskill the talent that is here. And so GRCA has changed their talent initiative. They call it Meet Greater Reading, but one of the things that you'll see in placemaking is we're also asking PA Americana to begin to align some of its messaging with how we want to promote ourselves as Berks County. The disconnected youth piece is huge for us. There's been identified that there are several thousand disconnected youth within our community. And so I've had lots of conversations with our JPO office and our APO office, because disconnected youth, as per the state definition, is 16 to 24. So if you come into the JPO, the adjudication system, and you're 16, you stay till 18, but once you hit that, you're shifted over to APO. JPO population is down to serving 400 kids. We used to serve 1,200. And a lot of that has to do with the diversion programs that have been very successful for kids who are in our system. And now there are some peer works. I'm not going to tell you, sorry, I got a little lost in this because it was a whole language for me to learn. But there's very effective programming to get juveniles who are in the system into becoming really productive and kind of getting them back in. And please go no further than a juvenile probation. Don't go into APO. APO's got 6,000. And one of the things that we want to do is make sure that population, we've got some skills for you. So if we found that bringing you into a program, so many of you may know Berks County Pretrial Services, which used to be the Prison Society years ago. I know they don't like to be referred to as that, but they do an incredible job with taking folks and putting them into a very, it's a very interrelated program between studying for your GED, working on your soft skills, getting you into a place of employment where they will provide the funds for you to be able to get on the ground. So, you know, as an employer, you may be able to get a month worth of that employee's wages paid, and it gets you into that system. It's been very effective. It's expensive to do, but I will tell you this, keeping those folks out of our jail system, it's a whole lot less expensive to get people into productive employment than it is to get them and keep them in our judicial system. So housing, we know we need it. We put down accessible and attainable. Again, I've shared with you that this is not just about affordable housing. We've got some groups that we've been working with. We under Smart Growth, I've already mentioned we're taking a look at those plans that we call them stalled in here, so that they're already approved, they're on the books. We need to go back and figure out why they're not moving forward. And we need to make our outside residential developers aware that there is incredible market demand for that higher end as well. We know some of the roadblocks to housing development in Berks County. Some of it is our tax structure. Some of it right now across the board is cost of building materials and being able to get higher market prices in surrounding communities. But we think that this is a great place for housing development to occur. And this is going to go back to where municipalities want to see it occur, because not every municipality, you know, I've been in some who have said, well, the reason we zoned this light industrial is because we didn't want houses, but then they were surprised when a light industrial user came along. So, you know, zoning is, Michelle, you know well, zoning is your kind of first line of how do you want to see your community built out? And those are some things that we have to talk about. We would love to see more adaptive reuse projects. There's one underway right now that I point to in Fleetwood Borough. So the old Fleetwood Auto Body building is being converted into apartments now. The placemaking is very big for us because, again, we think this crosses a lot of our focus areas. Businesses want to locate in a community that is growing, and people want to move into a community that they see as growing and dynamic and has all of those ranges of things that are included in our vision. So under placemaking, this will also include our Greenway plan, which is underway now. We're going to be taking a look at that and figuring out how we incorporate that. We have already identified that we will put aside at least $250,000 each year above and beyond our typical general fund dollars for greenways and parks and open spaces for their improvement. We think that's really important to keep those spaces maintained in the manner that people want to see. So everything needs to look as if it's cared for. I drive into my missing borough, and I know that this is a community that cares about what it looks like and cares about the perception and cares about the amenity that you're providing to the residents that are here by creating beautiful spaces. And that's something that we need to really pay attention to across the board.
Is that just county-owned?
It will not be just county-owned. It will not.
It'll roll out to municipalities?
Yeah. One of the reasons that we've had success with these implementation dollars is because the American Rescue Plan dollars that came into the county, we had over $128 million in lost revenue, and I have colleagues across just the Commonwealth who counties have taken those dollars in and said, yep, we're good, thanks, we're keeping them. Our commissioners were very clear and said, being fiscally prudent, we believe that we can take in certain dollars to cover expenses that we didn't know we were going to have due to the pandemic, but we believe that it's most important to deploy these financial resources into the community. So as you may know, in our last round of competitive funding, There's about $18 million rolled out. The commissioners used a blind process. They used a citizen committee to review the over 160 applications that we received. And when that list went to the commissioners, they didn't take away from it, they added to it. So to their credit, they were very conscious also of making sure that dollars were aligned with projects, meaningful projects that take place in a whole lot of areas of Berks County, that they were not just concentrated in one area. And next year, the plan is to do another process where we're putting more dollars out just under those programs. So to the commissioner's credit, they're committed to deploying resources, and not every county is committed to that. And then I did mention the message, I mentioned that earlier. So kind of our 3 C's here, collaboration, communication, community. We think that by going out and continuing to talk about this and continuing to engage stakeholders, that this is how the plan is also going to be successful. But I'll go back to, there are also going to be hiccups along the way where we say, well, we thought that we should do this, but we realized that something better, something else will be more effective. So for each of the focus areas, there are implementation teams. The first implementation team that we'll meet is housing. And then there's probably right now about 15 stakeholders identified for each of the implementation teams. And their task will be to look at the goals, to look at the action steps, and then lay out the very specific things that will happen in year 1, start thinking about subsequent years, but to make sure that everything that we have started to implement and everything that we want to implement in year 1 is really, hitting everything it needs to hit. We certainly don't want to do anything by sitting in our, ivory tower at the County Services Center and saying we know best. We need to be out there and understanding what's working in communities and what the communities want to see as well. Because not every community is going to want to see or participate in proactive growth. So that's Imagine Berks. The one-sheeter that you have is just the one-sheeter showing you the focus areas. But I will make sure that the plan itself, I did not bring enough copies, I'm sorry about that, is made available to you. So not difficult reading, but has a lot more facts in here that you can kind of go through and say, oh, I see a little bit more about how they got to that conclusion. And then we also had the consultant include in there best practices from other communities, because we don't need to reinvent the wheel on everything. So that's what we're doing.
So is your program based on support, or is there financial backing that these different programs, you're gonna actually facilitate dollars towards them in some way, and then what's the mechanism for triggering those dollars?
So some of those, so in the ARP funds that we are providing this year, and we're going out and visiting the grantee recipients now to make sure that the projects are what they were proposed to be. There's $5.7 million identified in those projects alone that align already with year 1 implementation. We know there's going to be more of that next year when we do another quote-unquote competitive process, whether it's for capital projects, whether it's determined that it should be programs this time out, whatever that may be, those dollars will be deployed again. And one of the things that we'll say, how does it align with the strategy? So are we following what we, kind of putting our money where our mouth is? But in addition to that, the $250,000 that I mentioned is not part of that competitive process. And then there will be, right now, $1 million put towards housing. Our County Redevelopment Authority stepped up immediately and said, we'll hire the housing planner. We think it's that important. And Ken Pick, if you know Ken, has no ego whatsoever, so it's the right thing to do. We haven't had anybody wake up in the county for many, many years and just think about housing strategies in our community. So there'll be $1 million set aside for some of that adaptive reuse and redevelopment just for housing. There will be funds for site reuse, which is again geared towards boroughs. And then there will be an infrastructure fund. We're looking at it right now to figure out if it should be just a programmatic fund or if it should be an infrastructure bank. If any of you know anything about it, it's kind of a complicated monster there,
So
but
it's
it could
in
be
form of a
effective.
grant or in form of a loan?
It could be both. It could be a project that needs a grant, it could be a project that has a low interest loan, a deferred payment loan, you know, when the project's up and running, then the dollars come back. We'd love something to be revolving, but not everything is gonna be set up to pay back. And so those are the dollars that will go in specifically to those, you know, housing, infrastructure, site reuse. And then parks and recreation has additional dollars as well.
Would that then also involve the LERTAs and the TIFs and the,
It could, I mean, the LERTAs and TIFs can continue to be tools. But that's also, it's a little bit tough on those because the county will participate, but it comes from the municipality. So, you know, if a municipality doesn't pass that initial LERTA ordinance, the county can't participate even if it wants to. And we do have some hybrids. We have some LERTAs that are municipality and county only. The school district did not participate. We've had proposals for the municipality to pass the LERTA, not participate, but that ordinance allows the school district and the county to participate. So there's a couple of hybrid versions out there, but that's gonna come from the municipal level. And again, this is not, this is a county-led plan, but still not just we've been to municipalities and tell you what you have to do. It's more along the lines of, you want to do something, let's get the resources to align with what makes the most sense.
I'm gonna ask the somewhat awkward question that I get asked a lot, well, I should say, gets pointed out to me a lot by developers when they're looking at tax assessment here compared to surrounding communities or counties. Is there any plan by the commissioners to do a countywide reassessment in the near future?
There's no appetite right now for a county reassessment. There could be, it could be contemplated in a midterm, you know, but, you know, it's very difficult because in that assessment, you have when that balances out, you have folks who are going, oh my God, and then you have folks going, whew, thank goodness. It's not all sunshine and roses,
I know.
and absolutely, we recognize it, but it is a very difficult fix. Yeah. I should not speak on behalf of the commissioners, but it is not part of our
Yes.
strategy right now.
And I take it there was no recommendation from the consultant to do that?
There wasn't. No. But I think we were also very clear on some of the like kind of hard lines. Please don't give us something that we can't implement.
Makes sense.
When Pam offered to make a presentation to us, Michelle and I thought it would be worthwhile to have our municipal partners here and added you folks, notably missing is Spring Township. We did try, and there's really doesn't seem to be anybody that's specifically in charge or interested, or well, I'm sure they're all interested, but somebody specific. They don't have a committee like this. And so any of you that, you know, perhaps this is more Mike than any of the others of us, but that have, you know, we have a lot of dealings with contact with Spring, but not to the extent I think that Mike does. But we gotta encourage them, they gotta be part of this. You know, I have kiddingly said, and that's not really kidding, for some time that their strategy seemed to be that there'll always be another shopping center. Sorry, those days are gone, to pick up the slack. And they still have some open space and all the rest that, you know, it's gotta be considered. So that and the other noticeable missing piece here is the Wilson School District. The borough here is split, as we all know, and the other side of the railroad is Wilson Schools. And we have not been able to get them to cooperate with any sort of, we've had a proposed LERTA that floundered. Their biggest concern, so yes, Mark, what he thinks here, they say they are bursting at the seams and are thinking about another elementary school, but that's years away. How do you sit capacity-wise? Could you take some number of kids, I mean, nobody is looking to do a development that's gonna flood the school district with kids. But the thing that we had a problem with Wilson with was an apartment complex, and every study we've been able to get our fingers on and do our own research on indicated that there's very few kids coming out of a place like that. And that was one of their big pushbacks, along with, unfortunately, your counterpart over there is a lady who just stands at the front door with her arms folded saying, no way, no how, and doesn't wanna lose money or whatever as they call it in a word, which you don't lose any money, you just delay your pot of gold. So, what do you think?
To answer your question directly, we're doing well. I mean, the enrollment for our district has gone down the past couple of years. So, but capacity-wise, I mean, we're going through an slight expansion, $25 million project right now. That's created a few more classrooms in the Hills Elementary School. So we're okay. Whenever we look at the project that's potentially going in at West Reading, we look at where our apartment complexes and how many students are coming from there. A lot of the apartment complexes and the newer ones, we get a limited number of students coming there just because of the nature of the apartments that are being rented out, the studio apartments, not 3-bedroom apartments or whatever. Like families really aren't moving there. It's more of a younger generation. The question I actually had was, when you're doing your housing, kind of like the research on housing, are you taking the impact of the districts on that housing kind of research and how it's going to lead to, similar to what Wilson's kind of contemplating with a potential another elementary school, which is a huge undertaking in today's, I'll just shift to the school environment with taxes and financing and everything that goes with that. So we're okay here, but I mean, as we're looking county-wide, how's that going to impact everyone else's? When you're looking at housing and bringing more housing into certain districts, could have a significant impact on their school infrastructure. So we're okay right now. If we're looking to add 3 more high-rises, we will have a different conversation. But so right now we should be okay, even with the potential with what's going to happen at West Reading. Just looking at number of units in our history, we should not see a significant influx of students that's going to overflow our schools.
I think having Mike and Dean here too, I met with Mike a couple weeks ago to talk about non-economic development related topics, but we've not had, we used to meet quarterly as part of the joint comprehensive plan update. We've not done that since pre-pandemic, so probably a good idea, and Spring Township would be part of that as well. Probably a good idea to get them back up and running, so I can take the lead on coordinating that.
Any other comments or questions?
I'm going to leave these and then, Michelle, if you could just tell me who
Yes.
didn't get one, we'll make sure you get one. I can certainly leave these one pages for him. We are available, we are accessible, we think this is a dynamic process, so this isn't the end. And there's a real commitment to doing this, so. And you know, when you said that, you know, will there be consideration of school districts? If we don't bring the stakeholders to the table in the beginning, we can't be effective at moving things forward. And in some of these communities, it's not, like we've got to address some of the municipal ordinances that may not allow for what the market is looking at in terms, or demanding in terms of housing type and style. So,
In
all
your
of that.
in your slides and stuff, you refer a couple of times to quote unquote high-end housing. What do you define that as?
So our upper level, which is 400 and up, and the mid-value is that in between. The affordable housing defines itself under the federal standards where you're not paying more than 30% of your monthly income. There is demand at each of those levels. The programs, the federal and state programs and tax credits are geared towards that affordable housing end. But when you get to that middle value and the high value, the programs don't exist. That's where we think we'd have to step in with something like a site reuse or an infrastructure to make those potentially feasible. Which sounds a little bit crazy, like why would you do something like that? But right now our market is especially topsy-turvy. I will tell you that in terms of industrial square footage, I never thought in my career lifetime that I would see a 7 in front of a square foot number for an industrial user. That has become somewhat commonplace. I never thought I'd see it.
Well, residentially, in my real estate side of my life, I've represented a bunch of brokers, so I know what I'm talking about in that end. And today, Boston land, the materials are labor shortages and those sort of issues. It's very difficult to build new single homes, not single family, single home, much under $400,000. It's kind of the starting point in new construction, which is staggering. So there are things that we have suggested through some of the smart growth things about taking a look at how the county assesses land. That really does need to be addressed. The county, if there's a raw piece of land, it's assessed as a raw piece of land, farming it or whatever. But as soon as somebody has an approved plan that's recorded, they decide those are all individual lots and up the assessment from raw land to improved lots. And at this point, there's not a road, there's not a house there with a kid to teach, there's nothing. And that, Tony Farino used to show me his bill, he'd have a stack of assessment, tax bills, a foot high that were on individual lots in his communities that weren't developed and stuff like that. And they could be like $2,500 or more a year. And all that does is get built back into the cost of the house, and it's part of the reason why the starting price is $400,000. If he holds that lot for 10 years, you're adding over 20 grand to the ultimate cost of that house. That's got to get changed. It's stupid, and we're the only county that does it. To our knowledge, anyway. So, enough of that soapbox, but, so nobody else has any other thoughts? Make sure that each of our, we'll call them guests, get one of those.
And then I can drop some off for your folks who are here.
Right.
Thank you. Because I actually really like hearing this, because this is falling in line with exactly what we're trying to do up in St. Spring. I mean, we're, for a small bird to take on what we took on is kind of crazy. But it finally is starting to move in the direction that we want it to go in. Village Greens finally is moving. That Wilson actually approached us to take that property for this new school. I fought that as much as I could and actually deterred them away. They are going to be moving forward with the school. From what I gather, it's going to be off the State Hill Road somewhere.
Yeah, that's what I heard too.
But with that construction coming online, that is super for us. We're going to reuse that property as far as high-end apartment buildings. There's going to be a nursing facility in there, and then a professional office building out front. With our realigning of our downtown and creating the new back street, which you know all about it, that has been, we've had some challenges with that, but our vision for that downtown, and we're actually rechanging our zoning for there to make it more of a form-based code that we can do more with the property, because it is a small piece, but it has a lot of value to it if it's done right. We're looking at building 3-story structures, multiple structures, having the vision of the live, work, play. We're also talking to BARDA and Lancaster, I forget their name, about putting a bus hub in Sinking Spring at that location, tucked into a corner, just to make it a little bit easier for the people to navigate through there, because now, somebody coming from the west who wants to go over to Spring Ridge, they have to all be in town, get a different bus to go to Spring Ridge. But we're hoping to get a hub in our ground that we can just migrate wherever, and also incorporate Lancaster. So we're doing a lot, I love hearing this, because this comes right into play with what we're doing.
Good.
And help would be great.
Dean, how about West Reading? You know, everybody loves Penn Avenue. What about the rest of it?
So far, they're moving along. We're at the furthest we've ever been with that, the project at the parking lot on Penn Avenue. But I guess there's a small snag. They're just working through some background stuff. The design didn't come out the way they originally wanted it to. And, we're working with the school and the county for the TIF. So I haven't heard much more than that so far, but everything else seems to be moving pretty good.
I mean, just for you guys, you know, here, we're kind of wrapping up things over at the knitting mills. We have, what is referred to as the island, which is the chunk of land between the railroad lines, that has a small bridge now. We need a big bridge and an improved small bridge to really make it usable. So anybody that has any ideas about what to put on the island, we're all ears.
I'd add to that, the underside of Wyomissing Square, the retail, is finally, 14 years later, building permit for fit out, well, demo permit was released a few weeks ago, building permit for fit out, I see your face.
Wow.
I know.
Wow.
Building permit for fit out will be released next week, so that whole complex will finally, in about a year, be completed. Problem properties, shops at Wyomissing, Berkshire Mall, Crown Plaza, in at Reading, so we still have our work cut out for us as well.
There seems to be a reluctance, compare Berks County with Lancaster County. And I'll just take one example, Wegmans and Trader Joe's. And I've heard comments that neither of those, never's a long time, but do not intend to come to Berks County, yet you go over to Lancaster County, and my gosh, they're over there flourishing. I hope that this is gonna help address that problem. A lot of people talk about that they love Wegmans and they love Trader Joe's, but can't get any in Berks County.
It's the numbers, what they look at a corporate level for college
Well, I'm
degrees.
sure they have
and
some,
stuff.
I'm sure they have some program or some formula. Oh, yeah.
One of the issues that has just made my head explode countless times is one of their criteria are the percentage of college graduates.
Yep,
Oh, really?
yes.
And we lag in that, not so much currently with the current student problem, but in the past. The problem with that was this was a highly successful industrial place.
Right.
You know, think Dana, think,
Kingsport,
you know, Reading Railroad, you know, all that kind of stuff. And many kids graduated from high school, went into one of those industries, and was essentially set for life. That industry would teach them what they need, their part was in the industrial process, and they had good lives, and maybe even put their kids to college, but they're not college graduates. And so our numbers don't look so good, but it's because of our industrial heritage. And to think that, you know, they are inferring that we're a bunch of slackers or something is just wrong. Completely.
And we tried getting Trader Joe's in the hospital, the old hospital site, the shopping center, and then they turned us down.
Yeah.
They had any interest at all.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a shame. So, anybody have anything else on this particular subject? Otherwise, does anybody have any old business? This is Bill's opportunity to say what's the latest with the Berkshire Mall.
No, I think it's wonderful that, you know, we don't want to put pad site restaurants in there, but we'll now put tent-covered meat stands you know, in the parking lot. I think that's wonderful, and the mall's doing a hell of a job. I hope they keep it up. You know, that's all I'll say on the mall
Or
issue.
yes, Bill is obsessed with the faith of
One thing, where do we stand with, under old business, Vets USA or whatever that's called?
They have not responded to me in months. We're cutting the grass, we'll end up leaving the property at the end of the season. I was contacted by a real estate broker who was interested in that property for a church, which it's a pretty big hotel to relocate a church into. I warned her, good luck. I don't think she was successful in reaching anybody since she then called me about the Berkshire Mall, and I'm like, even better luck with that one. Crickets.
Yeah, what spurred me to bring that up was, last night on Channel 69, I guess, is it Reading Housing or just the city is doing something for homeless vets. They're gonna begin a program on Walnut Street. I believe it was the 400 block that they're gonna start doing similar to what this USA Vets or whatever that was called.
Veteran Services.
Yeah, it sounds like they're doing a similar thing on Walnut Street now, going to start. Do you hear anything about that?
You know, that's either, that could be a combination between the housing authority and the county redevelopment authority. I think it
Yeah,
was probably funneling some of those.
It was on the
Dollars.
news last night.
That, it's an existing apartment building, so it's not huge. Just as you were, it's very close to the 7th Street cut with the railroad line. And it is basically homeless vets, you know, literally homeless, to give them an opportunity to have a roof over their head. So it's not really anywhere near the scale or
So
scope
this was gonna-
of what this was going to be. Really not. I wouldn't consider them competitors. Anybody else? How about new business? Anybody have anything there? To pick at a scab that you might be interested in, have we heard anything from the charter school people over here? This office building across the street was purchased by an outfit that operates, underline the word operates, a charter school thing. It was not designed to have classrooms or something like that over here. As an office facility, they could literally have put an office building and topped it and done the same thing. It just happens to be where they are, but it's a sore subject. Mark is not feigning or anything, so maybe not so for the Wyomissing School District, but the Wilson School District is beside themselves as they think it's gonna take kids and they still have to pay for them and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's a sore subject. And what they can do is they can actually use it as like a counseling center. So they can bring students in, help to do field trips. It is virtual charter school. So they can still bring students in there. They have multiple ones throughout the state that are in existence now. What it could do is it could take more kids and get them to essentially enroll into their cyber charter school. If you don't know how that works, is that there's a set formula by the state you put your budget into based upon your average daily membership of students. It calculates a rate for special ed and for regular ed students that we have to pay the charter schools. It takes taxpayer dollars to pay the virtual charter school, and they pocket that. Each district has their own rate because it's based upon the district's budget. So there's actually a list of the rates. You can go on the Pennsylvania Department of Education website. Look at all the rates. Could range from $15,000 from a regular student to up to $35,000 to $36,000 for a special ed student. And that money goes directly to them. So we pay them each month. It goes to them for an annual basis. So they kind of come in here, use it as a hub to kind of gather some more momentum to get their students. Fortunately for our district, we don't have many students attend virtual charter school, but we fear that them being right in our county, in our backyard, that it could be more of a magnet to get students to switch to virtual and attend the school, taking more money from.
Are they in turn tax exempt?
Yeah, the building would become tax exempt then.
So they've owned it for a year and they've made
Yeah.
no inclination to do that.
Correct.
Do they attract local students or would they attract, in this particular one, would it be Berks County or would it be multiple counties?
It'd probably just be Berks County.
Just Berks
It'd be like
County.
their Berks County hub. They have a hub in York County.
Okay.
They also have a few others, I don't know exactly where. But it, you know, it could be a central place where students that are attending that virtual charter school in the county can kind of come if they need counseling or some sort of, any type of help. If they can't do virtual, they can come into that.
So it was only gonna be considered tax exempt if it was actually considered a school.
I think all their buildings are considered tax exempt because they're under that charter school, which is considered by PDEAs.
Not in any way, Mark, to be argumentative.
Okay.
I feel your pain.
Yes.
But if a family owns a home and they pay real estate taxes, 70% or so of which is school, and have chosen to have their kids go to such a school, why can't those dollars pay for their kid to go to school?
I don't think that's the argument. I think it's how it's calculated, is how, so specifically on the special ed side, a charter school can designate a student being special ed, or change that special ed status, and it might not be what we pay them, might not be exactly the level of what we would do it if we were doing house, it could be done cheaper. So I'm not arguing that question, or that's a good point. But I think it's how it's calculated and what those dollars actually go to. I mean, a cyber charter school has very low end costs, right? Like, they don't have all the infrastructure, everything that a school district has to do. They don't have the transportation costs, they don't have everything that includes with the school district. So what's their actual cost per student would be more apropos to what we would want to pay versus what we are paying. So I think there's.
So the argument
yeah.
really is with the state of those calculations.
Sure, yes, it's not, I mean, any issue with the charter school probably is, I don't have an issue with the virtual or a charter school, it's how the process works, right? That's all controlled by technically the state, but that process needs to change. So,
Well, I mean, I see the conundrum. I mean, Wyomissing and Wilson are top level public schools, period. The charter school concept was really initiated so people that are not in the top schools, but in the bottom schools, can get their kids a better chance. So I mean, it's one size fits all, but they're not all the same.
And there's some other issues, like they technically don't need to release their testing scores as we do, we're under that scrutiny. So there's a whole litany of items that,
Are there efforts to try to reform that at the state level?
always, except as you know how politics go, it goes nowhere. There's talk, it goes, so there's
Just
always.
like being at home, it's
Yeah.
all my fault.
No, it's it could be easily done if there weren't other red tape issues that go on. There's sensible ways to make it work, that everyone can come out as a winner.
Of course, the borough and the school district are concerned with this property across the street, it's better if it stands empty. Taxes still come in.
But I mean, again, Commonwealth Charter Academy bought it almost a year
Mhm.
ago.
Who holds the deed now?
Commonwealth Charter Academy,
Oh,
CCA. Not only have they not even applied for a building permit to fit it out, they've made no indication they plan or have asked to take it off the tax rolls. Not to say that can't happen, but there's also nothing we, the borough, can do to stop it.
Yeah, it's been in a coma for a while.
Yes.
Well, thanks for that update.
Sure, you're quite welcome.
All right, again, anybody else have anything, this is old stuff, I guess. And as far as new business, anything? If not, we'll adjourn and see y'all next month. Thank you guys for coming.
Thanks for
Thank you.
letting
Thanks,
us.
everybody.
Thank you.
My daughter Karen McAvoy,
Yes.
she always talks about this thing that when she gets really uptight, gets upset.
Yes.
When she starts talking about that.
It's
The expensive.
it's a polarizing topic, but as the charter schools have a lobbyist, so it's all things
The
that
customer
kind of connect the circle.
literally right across
We're
the
paying
street.
X, where's X going?
Yeah.
X is
Oh,
going into
that's-
some politician's
Yeah.
pocket, X is going into
Yeah,
advertising.
yeah.
You know, you look at Red Phillies, they have billboards, they have TV advertisements.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I watched it.
All things that we don't do or we can't do, so, yeah, it's,
Is that home,
It's
the
just,
first game home?
school choice is
Saturday,
great.
1 o'clock.
Right, it's
So
a
that's
good
good.
cluster.
That was-
Yeah.
Yes, you said about
Yeah.
Jeremy.
But I think.
So,
the
and
bottom
her
is
husband
what-
and sister.
So if we can fix that.
Okay.
Well, they do get that.